It's MRC TV's public service announcement with Brittany Hughes and Eric Scheiner.
Welcome to the MRC TV podcast. I'm Eric Scheiner.
And Brittany Hughes. Happy Wednesday again, everybody. Halfway through another week.
Halfway through the week. And again, if you're listening to us streaming from the MRC TV website, that is great. You can also find us on iTunes and Google Play. Just look up MRC TV podcast. It's not that difficult. Just
not rocket science.
Google it up, download it, enjoy. Just like Brittany's enjoying her time not being in the studio with me, avoiding me once again.
Yeah, that's what it is. I just couldn't, the smell. The smell gets a little old after a while. It's the cologne. It's like Jersey Shore all up in there.
It's the cologne. Yes, I'm known for wearing my tons of cologne. Well known. Last week you avoided me with the snowstorm. This time you're getting ready for CPAC.
I am getting ready for CPAC. I'm actually going to be there tomorrow and Friday, which is, it's an interesting CPAC this year. I think that there's a lot of interesting speakers, and they kind of run the gamut. You've got people that are really on the pro-Trump side, people not so much, but there's, I think it's an interesting lineup. They've got a whole lot of really cool panels that are going to be kind of side panels from the main stage about media bias, how to retain journalistic integrity, all kind of stuff that the Media Research Center really hits on. So I'm excited about it. It's a really cool event in D.C.
All right. And, of course, if people want to track you down there, you're going to be buzzing around. You're going to be popping up on some radio shows. And people can say, hey, Brittany, if they happen to be at CPAC this week.
True story. Well, you can't really miss me. I'm starting to look like the Goodyear blimp.
Wow. You're a little harsh on yourself, pregnant woman.
It's okay. I'm good with it because I have an excuse. It's not because I've been just downing Fritos or anything. But it is getting a little bit more interesting. It used to be that I could kind of hide it. Not so much anymore. So if you see somebody waddling around, that would probably be me. Come say hi. Love to meet everybody. I'll try to wear something semi-flattering.
And waddling around in Congress today giving testimony is Michael Cohen. As we speak right now, he's giving testimony where he's going to lay out his case why Trump is a racist and a liar and a really generally all-around bad guy.
Can we just talk for 2 seconds, though, about how we're in the same sentence, Michael Cohen is accusing someone else of being a liar? That's really funny to me. Not like ha-ha funny. It's kind of a serious subject. I understand that. But it's kind of like Andrew McCabe being taken seriously when he's under fire for basically being a giant whopping liar that never tells the truth. It's like that with Michael Cohen. And the media is flipping out about it. Like, oh, listen to what he has to say. He's just going to throw back the curtain on Donald Trump. This is a guy who, literally he's in trouble for being a liar.
That's right. Lying to Congress is something and of course CNN, CNN reporters coming out, this is going to be devastating. And we'll have to see as the day goes on. It looks like he's bringing some checks that Donald Trump signed. He's going to allude to the fact that maybe Donald Trump Jr. knew about what was going on with WikiLeaks and the emails that were coming out of the Democratic Party. But again, that doesn't show collusion with Russia, which has been the main focus and what the media has been hyping on. It shows that they're being aware of what WikiLeaks was doing with their opponent.
Well, and you also hear there's a huge difference, and the media tends to leave this part out, has for the last couple of years in this quest to find some sort of connection between Donald Trump specifically and the Trump campaign with Russia and with WikiLeaks and with this whole collusion thing. And their inability to actually come up with evidence, I think, is important here because, look, this isn't evidence. This is not tangible proof, okay? This is Michael Cohen saying some things. And again, as we're recording this, the hearing has not completely taken place, happening right now. I'm not sitting there obviously watching that. I'm doing this. So maybe there'll be more to say more towards this evening. But I did read the majority of Cohen's prepared testimony that he was going to give. I read it before the hearing this morning. And what it seriously lacks is proof. It lacks proof. The one thing that they've come out with, and of course the media like to seize on bombshells that end up being nothing burgers, things that they like to call evidence. But you've got this check, right? This check that Donald Trump wrote, and it's for like $35,000 or something. And Michael Cohen is saying that it was illegal hush money that he gave to me, that he paid me back for. but there's nothing on the check that says what it's for. It's not like in the memo line he wrote like illegal hush money. It's a check that at this point it's Michael Cohen's word, which at this point amounts to pretty much, the value of mud. So I'm not, again, having read the testimony, again, I don't know what's going to come out during the actual hearing, but having read the testimony, there doesn't seem to be this bombshell that the media is looking for. Once again, it seems to be much ado about nothing, at least to this point.
Again, having a check, that somebody actually paid their lawyer. Okay, that's shocking. That's revealing.
Wow.
And then there's some allegations that Trump used his charity to help a bidder buy a portrait of himself at an auction. We'll see what the details of that come out to be. But I mean, again, the big bombshell not there. It was really funny is the GOP actually released a video yesterday, a collection of Cohen, saying, well, if you want to believe Cohen, here's Cohen just praising the heck out of Trump. And they play the video over and over, all Cohen's appearances, talking about how.
Play it.
Yeah, we'll play it. Hold on. Let's play it right now.
Now, I want to tell you about the real Donald Trump. He's really, he's a unifier. The words the media should be using to describe Mr. Trump are generous.
He's going to do everything that he promised. He's going to bring success and he's going to make America great.
Compassionate, principled.
Donald Trump speaks from the heart.
Empathetic, kind.
He's going to stay true to who he is. He's going to be an amazing president.
Humble, honest, and genuine.
Mr. Trump's memory is fantastic, and I've never come across a situation where Mr. Trump has said something that's not accurate. All Donald Trump wants to do is make this country great again.
Don't you love the music?
I keep dancing along. I really do. It sounds like I should be like trotting down the yellow brick road or something, like with the Oompa Loompas. I don't know. I love it. I think it's hilarious. And again, why Michael Cohen's word is basically worth crap at this point, because you've got somebody who's completely flip-flopped. I don't even know that Michael Cohen knows what Michael Cohen believes anymore, to be honest. I think he's doing whatever it takes to try to pull as much of his fat out of the fryer as he possibly can, is what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, and at the end of the video, the text comes up and it says, have a good time in prison, basically, to Michael Cohen.
That's not funny. Prison's not funny. Prison's not good, y'all. Don't do things to get you sent to prison. It's not good.
So anyways, that's going on today. Obviously, the media is focusing on that. Now, a lot of people are saying that this is the Cohen testimony going on currently is a distraction from what's going on in Vietnam in regards to Trump meeting with North Korea. And it's also to distract from the Mueller investigation, because a lot of people say they're not expecting anything real coming out of it. So this is going to give the Democrats something to talk about as long as they have Michael Cohen.
Yeah. Well, and again, I think that this is something that you see over and over again, and I keep using the word bombshell, but that's what everybody keeps calling them, that end up being nothing burgers. These little details that come out. It's kind of like, you remember when Rachel Maddow said that she had Trump's tax returns and everybody lost their
from 3 years ago.
Oh my gosh, they absolutely lost their mind. And to this day, I hold a grudge against her for it, because she actually made me sit down and watch her whole stupid show, which I never do, and I can't ever get that hour back from my life. But look, it's the same kind of thing, right? There's this huge deal made out of it. It's the same thing when the debunked, complete and total bullcrap BuzzFeed report came out, and they spent hours and hours and hours ginning up conversation about it and bringing on all these panels and talking about it, and it ends up ultimately being nothing. And I think this is something that the American people get very, very weary of. I've always been a proponent of the Mueller investigation concluding. It needs to conclude, but it needs to be allowed to conclude, right? I think that that's an important thing. I think it'd be really bad if it were not allowed to wrap up, and I think that's something that is going to happen. But at this point, I think the vast majority of the American people would agree that's ultimately what needs to happen here. That's what we need to be talking about. That's what needs to happen. That's what we need to be waiting on. Everything else just seems like sideshows to a circus. And I think people are sick of it. I think people are really, really tired of it. What's happening in Vietnam is actually important. What's happening in Vietnam is actually very impactful on the world stage. That needs to be getting press coverage, not a known liar being given all day, on every single network to sit there and run his mouth.
I want to say, you mentioned the BuzzFeed report, which of course, alluded that Cohen, basically had said that he was ordered by Trump. BuzzFeed had information that Cohen was ordered by Trump to lie. And then of course, Mueller and them came out and said, no, that's not the case. And of course it ties into Cohen. He's testifying today and now he's saying, well, it was implied that Trump told them to lie. So it wasn't said, it was implied. Interesting that that's a crime. And the Democrats are going to talk about that. And again, if the Mueller investigation wraps up and there's no criminal Russian-connected indictments there for the president, they're going to start their own investigations. Adam Schiff is all ready to get going and start digging up even more, because this is something that will never end.
No, well, it's the only thing that they have. Look, and they put so many eggs into this basket that at this point, it's kind of why they keep seizing on all of these things that end up not actually being things, because they so desperately need for it to be true, right? I mean, we saw the whole implication thing. I mean, we saw that back with James Comey when, he was talking about whether or not Donald Trump specifically asked for his loyalty and asked for him to, to kind of overturn to stop this investigation. Oh, well, he, at dinner, he kind of implied that that's what he wanted me to do. He didn't outright say it. He just sort of implied it. So that's the level that we're reaching to now for this quote unquote evidence, when I think, if you show me hard evidence that something happened, that something illegal happened, I'm not one of those that's going to say, I would never, ever believe it no matter what comes out. But the more you continue to push this narrative without evidence, I think, it's the little boy that cried wolf over and over and over again. And people are sick of it, and it needs to wrap up. It needs to be finished. We need to move on, because look, there are really important things happening in America right now. You do have what's going on in Vietnam. You've got this debate raging over abortion, which of course the media does not want to talk about, because, the narrative is starting to turn on them when it comes to that. You've got socialism on the rise and people really pushing for these crazy, crazy socialist proposals. You have big things that we actually need to be talking about. That's where the focus needs to be.
Right, but instead they're going to focus on what was possibly implied. You mentioned the abortion issue. Let's talk about what happened on Monday. Very, very disappointing. The Senate trying to break that Democratic filibuster to vote on the Born Alive Protection Act from Senator Ben Sasse. And no, didn't happen. Didn't get enough votes. In fact, while 3 Democrats crossed the line, every single Democratic presidential candidate decided this is something they wanted to vote against. And a lot of people are saying this is a vote for late-term abortion.
Well, it's not just a vote for late-term abortion. It's a vote for infanticide. We're not talking about abortion at this point. And this is one thing that I think, it really highlights how extreme the radical left has gone on abortion, where we're not talking about babies inside the womb. That's heinous enough, right? And that used to be where the conversation was, whether or not it was okay to kill a baby inside the womb. At what point was it okay to kill them? Up until what point? That used to be the discussion. Now,
because of New York and Virginia, things have changed.
Well, things have changed, but they haven't changed. I would say that things haven't changed. They've just become public. The radical left's agenda that's been there all along has now been publicly stated. Look, babies that survive abortion attempts have been left to die or outright murdered for years. This is well documented. This is not this is an open secret. This is something that is well documented.
Right. No, this is something that Senator Obama testified against measures. There's actual Senate testimony when he was an Illinois state senator about babies being left, alone to die.
Absolutely. I mean, you've got Kermit Gosnell, who's now serving, time in prison for killing babies that survived abortion attempts. And you've had abortion survivors speaking on the floor of Congress. So to say that, that this is a non-issue, babies don't survive abortions, we don't need to talk about that because it doesn't happen. It's been well documented for many, many years that does happen. So now we're not even talking about babies in the womb. We're talking about what to do with babies outside of the womb who are living, who are in need of medical care, and whether or not it is acceptable in the United States of America in 2019 to allow them to die on the table, to not give them medical care. So the fact that you have 42 Democratic senators and 2 independents, including Bernie Sanders, who's running as a Democrat in the 2020 election.
Right, of course.
The fact that you have that many senators voting against a bill that simply says, look, you cannot allow an infant to just expire on the table if they happen to survive an abortion attempt. And if you're a doctor who does do that, you can be criminally prosecuted. That should be a no-brainer.
It should be, but the left loves to paint this as, it's healthcare, it's women's rights.
It is healthcare.
Well, yeah, you're right. It is healthcare, but they paint it as women's healthcare and women's rights, and this is a decision between the mother and her doctor, and this is just a conservative, right-wing Republican attack on women's healthcare, and it's like, well, no. In this case, Senator Ben Sass is right. This is about treating a child that is born alive equal to any other child that's born alive. If the abortion is botched and the child is born alive, give it medical treatment, help it survive.
I rise today for a simple purpose, Madam President. I want to ask each and every one of my colleagues whether or not we're okay with infanticide. This language is blunt. I recognize that, and it's too blunt for many people in this body. But frankly, that is what we're talking about here today.
Yeah, this is no longer about women's bodies. And look, this is where I say this is something that this is not a new thing. This is simply exposing a very old thing, that this has never been about women's bodies. This has never been about protecting their autonomy. You're talking about an entirely separate living being, which even before they are born, they are not the woman's body. They have their own body. They have a separate set of DNA. They're a completely, entirely separate human being, regardless of their location. But I think that this really highlights that argument, because now you've got leftists arguing for infanticide after the baby has left the woman's body. This no longer has any impact on her body. The baby's not in her body. It's not threatening her health. The woman is one patient, and the baby is now a separate, completely different patient. And they're still trying to wrap this all under the guise of women's healthcare, women's bodies. And my question is, okay, if a born alive infant still falls under the mantle of the woman's body and the woman's reproductive rights, at what point does that stop? At what point does that stop? If you take your 2-year-old into a doctor and that child is diagnosed with leukemia and you simply say, well, deny it treatment, we'll make another. At what point is this child now being treated as its own separate entity? And I think Democrats are really starting to lose this argument because they've revealed their true colors here. The story cannot end with anything other than a dead infant in their book.
No, you're absolutely right. In fact, you're saying they're losing the argument. The Marist poll that came out, and it was taken beginning of February, I believe, like the 11th through the 17th, early February, it showed a huge change in just the period of a month because this, whether or not the media wants to talk about it, social media certainly wants to talk about it. There's no doubt about that. Social media is talking about, Virginia Governor Ralph Northam's comments about, with the baby's born, we can have a talk with the mother and the doctor before we decide if we're going to save this baby or not. Infanticide, there's really no other way to talk about that. And then, of course, you have the measure in New York. You have the discussion of the possible bill in Virginia. And you have this most recent vote. Social media is up on this. In the last month, they've seen a huge change. They see about 48% of Americans describing themselves as pro-life. And the biggest increase in the last month has been among Democrats and among people under the age of 45.
Yeah, I think you're starting to see a major shift again, because the leftist agenda, and when I say leftist too, I don't mean general leftist, I mean radical leftist, because I think that there are a lot of people that fall on the left side on many political issues that consider themselves Democrats who find this absolutely abhorrent. So when I say leftist,
hold on, I'm going to put you on, but not in office.
But not in office. That's what I'm saying, is the militant segment of the progressive left, the abortion lobbyists, the lawmakers that they buy off, that are completely and totally in their back pockets. Because let's be honest, okay? This really all comes down to money. If it weren't about the money in this billion-dollar industry, we wouldn't even be having this discussion. But I think people are starting to see this has been the agenda all along, and this is something that people can't get behind. This Marist poll, too, it's important to note, this Marist poll is a nonpartisan poll. And they have asked the same questions about abortions for many, many years. They have been tracking this issue for many, many years. So this isn't something that they just came out with to see what people thought and they're comparing it to other polls. No, this is a shift in the Marist poll that has stayed very consistent for many, many years. And just in the last month, you saw a swing of 10 percentage points in favor of those who now identify as pro-life, because they're starting to realize, look, again, I have issues with this stance personally. I'm pro-life from the day of conception, but you've got people that would say, look, I'm pro-choice to a certain point in cases of rape and incest, in cases where it's very early,
right?
But now we're talking about 8-month-old infants. We're talking about babies that have been born alive that are now being left to die. The reason you're seeing this big push on the left is because with Donald Trump's nominees to the Supreme Court and with this push from pro-lifers and from states that are led by pro-life Republicans to enact more and more stringent restrictions on abortions, the left is now very fearful that Roe v. Wade is going to be overturned. So they're trying to codify abortion in their own state houses, and that's why you're seeing a more and more radical shift. And as they push that, what they truly believe about the humanity of the unborn, and now the humanity of the born who just happen to not be wanted, is starting to be more exposed, and people can't get behind it.
And again, you see the numbers that are coming in. So it seems that you have lawmakers in the Senate that we saw on Monday. They're not doing the will of roughly 80% of Americans. If you look at the poll, that don't believe in late-term abortions, they're not doing, if you're not doing the will of the people that voted you there, are you doing it for the money? Is the PAC money that good from Planned Parenthood? Do you need that campaign money? Are you doing it because you simply believe in death? I mean, what's the reason? They try to shelter it under this women's health issue, and it's really not sticking anymore.
No, it's not. And I think they thought it would. I think that's the thing. I think that they thought it would. I think that they've run on this platform of women's health and women's bodies and women's rights. The baby just kind of comes out in the wash, right? The baby just sort of becomes like a lump that we don't talk about. The focus is solely on the woman. So they've been able to get away with such heinous things for so long under this guise of women's rights. I think there's this idea that, well, we can just lump whatever we want under women's rights and people will buy it because we're saying women's rights. We can just keep repeating that mantra over and over again. I think they've jumped the shark now in talking about babies that have been born that are now completely separate from the woman. Like I said before, you can be incredibly pro-choice. You can be pretty radically pro-choice and still understand that once a baby is out, that's no longer about the woman's body. You can't make that argument anymore. It doesn't hold any water. So I think that maybe they thought that they would be able to get away with this. Maybe they thought, you saw in the New York State House, all those people standing up and applauding.
Yeah.
When that law was passed. So maybe they
lighting up the building pink, celebrating.
Yeah. Maybe they think that it's all they're going to be able to get away with it. And as long as they paint it under this umbrella of women's rights, that everything will be fine. I think where they're going to start seeing a pushback, is the polls, because this issue is not going away. It's not going away. No,
but you mentioned, one of the reasons they keep bringing this up is they're concerned about the Supreme Court and Trump. And now you have this recent move that they're talking about. Well, maybe if we get a Democratic president, we'll just add more members to the Supreme Court. If we can't do things if we can't win the regular way, we'll just change the rules so we win. Unbelievable. And this is getting huge media coverage and support.
Well, you see the same exact thing when they talk about abolishing the Electoral College. The Electoral College is great until they don't get what they want, and then all of a sudden we have to do away with the Electoral College.
Yeah, right. Now basically, if you're not a major Democratic stronghold in a large city with a huge population, your vote doesn't really matter.
No, you're just going to get completely steamrolled. All those people in flyover country now get absolutely no voice. So again, but this is something that the left is famous for doing. They're famous for wanting to change the rules. It's kind of like, you don't make enough money. Well, instead of doing what everybody else does and working your butt off and working your way up, we'll just change the rules and make your employer pay you more. It's always about changing the rules. It's not about your personal responsibility to go out and, take care of yourself or to listen to your constituents and do what they want. No, we're just going to change the rules. We're going to level the playing field, but in a way that favors us.
Yeah,
this is very typical.
Yeah, it is the way they like to do it. Look, we are almost out of time. It's time for us to wrap up, but I do want to say once again, download us on iTunes or Google Play if you get a chance, and check out Brittany. Go see her at CPAC. She's going to be walking around, hearing some of the great speeches, and bringing us some coverage.
Yeah, absolutely. Would love to meet everybody if you happen to be there. It's at the Gaylord. Well, I guess it's technically Maryland. Gaylord's in Maryland, I think. Yes, Gaylord is in Maryland. But definitely come check us out and check us out on mrctv.org, and we will see you back here in not next week. Well, we are going to be here next week. You're just not going to be here next week.
You're going to be here next week, not me.
I will be here. Oh,
I'm going to be.
I'll miss you, friend.
I'm going to be off traveling, but we have some things that need to get done. But it'll be you by yourself. You'll be all right. You'll be able to hold.
I'm so sorry. I apologize in advance. Just me running my mouth.
All right. Well, until then, I'm Eric Scheiner.
I'm Brittany Hughes. We'll see y'all next time.